guys, we are back with another episode of the Talking Lead podcast. And we are at a remote location. We've got the Leadquarters set up at our good buddy Jeff Kirkham's office here at, it's got multiple names. Is this the Black Rifle Coffee? Is that what we're going with, or READYMAN?
No, this is the READYMAN live podcast room.
The READYMAN live podcast room is doubling as the Leadquarters as we are speaking right now. So our live crew, I hope you guys are joining us. If you've got questions, start posting questions now. Also joining us, walking in the room here.
I'm late.
You've got none other than Jacob Herman, whose new nickname is
Dirty Bomb.
And then, of course, our good friend Jarrad Markel was student of the gun, joining us for this episode. So this is kind of a impromptu episode of the Talking Lead podcast. But we're going to have a good time. So make sure you guys go back and check out our previous episode, the AK Corner, Talking Lead AK Corner, where we had our good buddy. What? You're going nuts over there.
You had an AK episode and I wasn't there?
I have one every month now. We've got a new segment. It's called the Talking Lead AK Corner, presented by Pioneer Arms Corps.
Yeah, boy.
Boys out of Poland. And we had C.J. Johnson on. He's the president of Pioneer Arms Corps. We had our good buddy Quentin Carter, Q, was on.
He's our amigo.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Just bought in with Blackout Cerakote Customs. So he's talking about that. And we had a couple other guys on too. So great episode. We gave away another AK-47 during that episode.
I should have
given one away every episode. We 10 so far, 2 more to give away, and then we're going to start all over again with 12 more episodes, 1 a month.
Can I be on the AK episode?
You can come. You can be on the AK Corner.
I'd love to be on the AK.
Jeff is definitely
I'm a big AK guy. So
Jeff is dead. We're going to find out more about Jeff for our lead heads who aren't familiar with Jeff and all the. I can't keep up with everything you're doing. You're an author. You're an inventor. You're an entrepreneur, and you're just an all-around badass.
that was. I'm a former action guy.
So. Former action guy. So, but. As always, we got to thank our sponsors. So make sure you guys go and show Right On Optics some love, RITON optics.com. Another reason that we're here in Salt Lake City is the Charlie Melton World Record Long Shot. We're going to be attending that here in the next couple of days. So we're going to bring you a lot of footage from that, doing some live stuff out there in the desert with Charlie Melton, Brad Stair, with Charlie going along with that Tejas. And I think all you guys are going to join us, right?
I think so.
Yep.
That is the plan.
Friday's the day.
Friday's the day. As you guys are listening to this who aren't watching live, this is Wednesday, so we got a couple of days to get ready for that. So, Jeff, we were talking a little bit. I was telling you about what we do with the show. Before we get into our Jackwagon Train, let's talk a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, I was in Special Forces, so I was a Green Beret for about 28 and a half years. Well, not about, it was 28 and a half years, so almost 30 years. And I actually joined back in 1987. I had like a very non-typical Special Forces career. And
is that such as non-typical?
Are
any of them typical?
Atypical. Well,
atypical is non-typical.
I was lucky or blessed where. It's when I went through, I joined very young. Back then it was called a Rep 63. Now they call them 18 X-rays. And, I went, so I joined between my junior and senior year of high school. So I went to basic training and jump school between my junior and senior year of high school. I came home from jump school, from airborne school, and thought I was a big bad paratrooper.
What year was this?
That was 1987.
1987.
Yeah.
Is that when Top Gun came out?
Pretty close.
Pretty close, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't want to be a fighter pilot to the chagrin. My dad was an Air Force guy. He wanted me to fly. I was like, nah, I want to be on the ground and be a Green Beret. And but anyways, long story short, so graduated high school. 2 weeks later, boom, I was in infantry school, and then went straight to Special Forces school. And so I was 18. And, the next closest guy was probably 25 or something. So
you didn't get picked on at all, did you?
I had enough common sense to keep my mouth shut.
There you go.
And it was like there were these guys running around that had just come from this weird place called Ranger Battalion. And it was like, oh, these guys seem like they know what they're doing. I had no idea what a Ranger was. And I was like, man, I'll keep my mouth shut and do what these guys tell me to do and learn. And so I did and passed. And, fast forward, I was a I got off of active duty at the end of the 90s and was a special agent for the Drug Enforcement Administration. So I did that for about 4 years. I was in the National Guard, Special Forces, at that time, a 19th group out of Washington State.
Okay.
And then the war kicked off, and I ended up going back on the invasion of Iraq. So we started in the Philippines when it looked like we were going to invade the Philippines, and then came home from that, rolled right over where I actually, during that time frame, is when I did the testing for the AK for SOCOM for their first data that anybody could find.
Okay.
Which essentially
we can do a whole show on that.
Do a whole show on that, yeah. And then went over on the invasion. I was a team sergeant in Special Forces for the invasion, and then while I was over there, I got recruited into a CT unit. So I was in a counter-terrorist unit for 13 years, and so I came home from the invasion, got recruited, and then, it was like 6 months later or 4 months later, I was back over there, and I'd go back and forth, back and forth. Yeah. So I racked up about 8 years on the ground between Afghanistan and Iraq in the CT unit, which is where I met Dale Comstock.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Yep.
Yeah. So earlier we were doing the Student of the Gun podcast, and you guys brought up his beard? Is that what you're talking
Well,
about?
he is a fairly beautiful.
Yeah, he's got a serious Fu
handlebar.
Manchu mustache going on.
He's got big arms too.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's a big dude.
He's a big dude.
Extraordinarily fit for his. He's
his
not a
age.
young guy anymore.
Yeah.
Would be the best way.
Dale's let's see, I think he's like 3 or 4 years older than I am, so he's like 50. He's like 55 now, I think. So,
right.
But so anyways, I did that, and then finished up with the CT unit, and then became an entrepreneur. And and I'd written a couple of books while I was still in, and
entrepreneur. Yeah.
And I had a couple of inventions that we sell. So like the RATs Tourniquet, the Rapid Application Tourniquet System, that's mine. I invented that. I have the patent. We sell that thing all over the world because it's so simple and easy to carry. As well as we just wrote Black Autumn. Me and my business partner Jason, who's the co-author, wrote Black Autumn, and that's actually a whole series of post-apocalyptic fiction.
Right.
And then we've written a couple of how-to manuals. And then if you're really bored one night and you can't get to sleep, I wrote 2 planning manuals for the military. So if you can't sleep, you can buy those and read them, and you'll fall asleep, guaranteed.
So you've got a series with the Black Autumn. Mm-hmm. Talk about that.
Must read.
So Black Autumn is it's a post-apocalyptic fiction. So it's a thriller, and really the background is Jason and I were talking over a series of time. We were talking one night, and and he's of course it was over bourbon or something good like that.
Best ideas happen that way.
We call that mind yoga, but and he was like, "Hey, how do you think that he's never been in the military, never been a cop, very very accomplished outdoorsman." And he was like, "How do you think the world could end or stumble or something?" And I was like, "Well, I'll tell you how I think it could happen." And so we talked about this, and it's like, well, if that happened, then what would happen over here, and what would you do over here, and what do you think would happen over here? And at one point, I think it was him that he was like, "Hey, man, we should start capturing this in a novel. I think it'd be really good." And I was like, "Man, that's funny you say that," because I had actually started writing a science fiction novel when I was in the CT unit. So I'd come back from missions, and you're trying to depressurize from
Right.
because you're all amped up or stuff, depending on what happened on the target, and most of the time you're coming back and so you're bone tired, and you're just some way to decompress, and you're bone tired, but you can't sleep. And so I started writing for a science fiction novel, and so it's like unbelievable for decompressing because you just get lost in this fantasy world of your own. Right. So anyways, I gave that to Jason. He read it, and he's like, "Hey man, that's pretty good. I think we can write a novel." And I was like, "All right, let's do it." And so we hammered out.
Did he have prior experience with writing or anything like that?
Not fiction. No, he's a very good writer. I mean, he's written a bazillion articles for different, survival and prepper magazines and outdoor magazines.
As far as getting into like books or novels, this is kind of the first.
He'd written 2 books, but they were on business. He's a retired businessman, and so he'd written 2 books on business, but never a novel. So It was other than I think I was the only one, if you could even say I'd done any writing at that point. It's about 200 pages into, my other one that hasn't been
the science
published
fiction
yet.
one.
The science fiction.
That sounds
one.
good. It sounds like a good one.
It's a
I
fun
love
read.
science fiction.
Yeah, it's a fun read. It's about, of course,
Like
it's about a
dragons?
special forces. Well, it's about a special forces guy that's in Afghanistan, and and at some point we'll release this. But a guy, he's done multiple tours going to Afghanistan. Go figure, right? And so he, at one point, he decides, you know what? Screw this. The war's going to last forever. I'm gonna friggin' find some treasure because it's Afghanistan, and like we were constantly finding like just crazy stuff, right? Like World War I German helmets out of these caves and stuff like that, just all kinds of stuff. So I was like, I'm going to write this story, and so I meshed. This special forces guy that his team gets wiped out by zombies, and he all of a sudden gets recruited into this organization called the Corporation, and he finds out that monsters are real, and he becomes like a bounty hunter, going after monsters, and they're grabbing the different parts of the monsters so they can bioengineer and
Now,
go
are these
back
like your
When
monsters
does
you
this
grew up
come
with,
out?
like going and hunting Frankenstein down?
It's
or-
all of the above. Like I was
The
meshing
Jersey
in.
Devil.
I was meshing in Greek and South American, all
bring
kinds
a
of
little bit of all the
mythology.
mythology
A lot of Viking mythology. A lot of biblical Old Testament, and in the Apocrypha, and just doing all this research and all this stuff so I could tie all these characters together. And ultimately, it ties into it's going to be the end of the world, and here's the main character, this SF guy. He's kind of caught in the middle between good and evil, and he doesn't know it, and he probably doesn't care. And so So
That sounds good. That sounds like a good.
When?
if Jason had something to say about it, because he's been beating me over the head now for about 6 months so that we could start finishing it up. So we just finished. Well, we just finished Black Autumn Conquistador. So we wrote. We've written 3. We're on the 4th companion novel of Black Autumn.
Okay.
And so there's Black Autumn, then there's Black Autumn Travelers, which is available. Black Autumn Last Air Force One, that one's available.
And it's a continuing epic.
Well, it's not a continuation. It's just at the same time as Black Autumn's happening, because we had so many people ask us, what else is happening in the universe, while Black Autumn is happening? Because Black Autumn takes place here in Utah. And so we wrote Black Autumn Travelers. That's about 3 of the characters that are trying to get back to Utah. Mm-hmm. We wrote Black Autumn Last Air Force One. So it's the President of the United States is flying around in circles while the world basically falls apart. Black Autumn Conquistadors is the growing threat from the South, known as the cartel, that I don't want to be a spoiler alert, but essentially it becomes another empire that's growing.
Okay.
And then we have Black Autumn Gunslingers that we're about 3/4 of the way through right now writing, and we'll release that probably in the next couple of months. And that is actually a guy that's trying to get to Utah ahead of the cartel. And so he's kind of the Paul Revere, the British are coming. He's
kind of like the Game of Thrones, the white. Was it the White Army?
White Walkers.
The White Walkers
Yeah.
are coming. The White Walkers are coming.
When is Conquistadors releasing?
I think we're going to release that. It's in editing right now, so it'll probably be 3 months.
I've read the 3 that are out.
Yeah,
They're awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I read.
got to read that.
We got
I'm
here
into
one
that
Monday,
kinda-
and he's like, "We've got another one out called Travelers." So I went to the hotel and read it.
And one-
Most people cannot finish a book in one sitting, so it's not a short book. I didn't want to say it like that. I read extraordinarily fast.
Right.
I didn't put it down, and I've got thousands of books, and for me not to put a book down, it's excellent. Must read. I've read every piece of prepper fiction out there. It's a must read. Go buy it now.
And the other cool thing is so we've got a closed group called the READYMAN closed group. And we've opened up the Black Autumn universe to a bunch of. I think there's a lot of veterans and even civilians that are having hard times with whatever it is, and writing is a phenomenal way to kind of to decompress. And so we opened up the Black Autumn universe to a bunch of the people in the READYMAN closed group, so that who's the guy in the black sweater shirt?
That's
Who's
my
the hot?
girlfriend.
Who's
That's
the
my
hot
girlfriend.
guy?
She's the best, man. She is the best human ever. She's so nice to me. It's weird.
Don't get sidetracked. All right, go.
Well, but we open it up to
That was my
the
bad.
Black Autumn universe to the other writers groups. So there will be more companion novels, And then White Wasteland is the sequel. White Wasteland will come out next fall. So it's at White Wasteland, which is the sequel of Black Autumn.
Right.
That's next fall is when that's scheduled. It's at the editors right now.
Very cool.
What is
trailer
the term
drop,
for
though.
that?
What's that?
When you have sci-fi books and everybody writes, you start collecting like fan fiction. It's the omniverse or the there's a term that they use for it in science fiction.
Yeah, there probably is, and I think
Does anybody out there in live land know what that's called?
When like somebody writes a book and then fans write.
Yeah.
it's kind of like Star Wars,
Star Trek.
And it's
Trek,
all over the like different worlds or different, but it's the same. It's the same. It's like the omniverse.
So if they want to get these books, they can go to
Amazon, and then we're getting them up in the ReadyMan store as well. So ReadyMan.com.
Okay.
We've got I think Black Autumn's up in there, and we've got 365 Days of Survival. That's a how-to manual.
Okay.
But you can go to Amazon and get all of them there as well.
Very cool.
If you don't
Now-
read the book and you don't want to be a prepper after reading the book, you have some major issues.
We've had, and really that's the back end of the reason, the big reason that we wrote the book was we're big believers in like emergency preparedness. Everybody should do it. If for nothing else, we talk about the probability of threat. And so for most people, the probability of threat, we use that term when we talk about close quarter battle and we talk about, gunfighting as well. And so, but it also applies to everyday life where you talk about the probability of threat for emergency preparedness. And the probability is mom or dad could lose their job. They lose their job, they get sick, get in a car wreck, something like that. Any number of things that now all of a sudden are affecting the family because they don't have the income that's coming in like they normally would. Well, now when times are fat, now's the time to prepare for that. It's to save your money. And even food storage, it'd bring a tear to your eye while we were cleaning out my house one time, and I had these old MREs. And I mean, these things were probably 10 years old, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I have no idea if these things are any good. And around here in Utah, they've got this thing called KSL. It's kind of like Craigslist. Mm-hmm. Only everybody in the mountain states uses KSL. So, and one section of it is free. And so it's like, there may be some value here. I'm not going to waste time to sell it, but I don't really want to throw it away because somebody might have some use for it.
Yeah.
And so I put these MREs out on KSL, and somebody immediately called us. This was 4 years ago. Somebody immediately called us and was like, hey, are those MREs still available? And I was like, yeah, but they're old. And so you need to make sure that you need to test them and make sure that, and I was like, and I'm not going to guarantee how well they're going to taste. And the gal on the other end was like, hey, we haven't worked for 2 years. So any food is appreciated. And, it's like, oh, okay, well, I've got a couple of buckets of wheat. I'll give you guys two and help them out. So, but that's where that's like that probability of threat. What had happened is her husband had gotten sick later on to find out.
And they weren't prepared for that.
Weren't prepared for it and had chewed through, almost everything in a matter of a few days. And then we're just living subsistence at that point.
And that's kind of like you said, the backbone of your novels there. And you also do, like you were saying, some manuals for preppers specifically for. Yeah, so
we've got a bunch of checklists where it's like we've got a bug out bag builder checklist. We've got a calorie checklist of how many calories you need and the different foods that are long-term storage foods and how many calories they have, so you can do the formula and figure out how much food that you think. We also have a beginning prepper's guide or emergency preparedness guide. I think it's preppers or the beginner's guide to prepping or emergency preparedness. Okay. And so we wrote it for people because we get asked all the time for folks that are like, I have no idea where to start.
Right.
And it's like, here, start with this book and it'll cost you less than fire insurance per year.
That's the best place to start, is to get the book.
Get the book, and it's step by step, and it lists it all out for you.
Very cool. So any of you lead heads out there that haven't started prepping yet, that's a good place to start. Go to Amazon and just put Jeff Kirkham in the search engine and all your stuff. I did it the other night, and all your books came up.
Yeah, it all shows up there. Yeah.
Very cool. So what I want to talk about is your other ventures that you have going on. You got mentioned READYMAN, Black Rifle Coffee, a couple other things probably that's in the work. But before we get into that, it's time for the Talking Lead Jackwagon Train. So, Gunny, bring that train in.
Hoorah, Semper Fi, do or die, hold 'em high at 8th and I. It is time for the Talking Lead Jackwagon of the Week, so brace yourself, baby.
So this is probably the most anticipated segment of the show.
Okay.
And this is where we were talking a little bit earlier, where we ask our listeners, our guests, if there's somebody or something that they've kind of got a chip on the shoulder about, or they want to call out for doing something stupid. This is the opportunity to do that, because we don't really talk politics on this show. Mm-hmm. Jarrad knows it. He's done the Jackwagon Train several times.
I've never been on it, but I've done it.
You've never been? I've been on it.
Just to clarify.
I've thrown myself on it a couple of times.
Somebody's seen the Plan to Survive.
Yeah. RDMAR, Plan to Survive, yeah. And I should have brought that up. I'm horrible at pitching different stuff.
One of your other books?
No, Plan to Survive is a survival engine. And so you go in there, it's 1,700 skills and pieces of gear that get you prepared for, essentially, it's highly customizable for whatever you think your probability of threat is. Mm-hmm. And you go through and it's a self-assessment, but then it also ties back to a lot of the tutorial videos we've done on ReadyMan. We've got close to 1,000 tutorial videos on handle, all kinds of different stuff. And so it ties back into that, but that's the other Benny that we've got.
So I'm going through this, and let's just pick this one. And it comes from Old Tennessean. And Old Tennessean, he's just sent a link here. So we'll click on this link and see what it's. I don't know what this is. I've not seen this one. So
oh boy,
this is his.
This is off the cuff right here.
And it comes from Ammo Land Shooting Sports News. 3 new gun control laws go into effect in Pittsburgh. Okay, so he may be from the Pittsburgh area, and this is going to hit him directly. Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Peduto signed 3 new bills that restrict the use of some semi-automatics, such as the AR-15, within the city limits, limit magazine size, and enacts a red flag law this past Tuesday. So this is fairly recently, I guess.
Well, that guy's a scumbag, isn't he?
Well, yeah. I mean, how did he get into office?
Well, but you know what though is, like, I think most you can't shoot inside most city limits. Are they talking about shooting or ownership?
If somebody comes in your house, this has been about a week ago.
Yeah.
If somebody breaks in your house, right, the way it's written, and you smoke that dude with an AR-15, they're going to arrest you for breaking the law.
But how are you breaking the law?
Because you've shot an AR-15 in the city limits. Not all guns, specifically AR. It's illegal to fire an AR-15, which means you can't take it to the gun range.
Do you know that it's illegal to do that in the city limits in Murfreesboro on Sunday?
But they specifically, so why they did that, you can't take your AR-15 to a gun range.
Yeah.
They're trying
Sunday.
every way in the world to say you can't have an AR-15 here.
So let's read on. The city deems these laws necessary after the Tree of Life shooting. In that shooting, a Nazi walked into a synagogue and killed 11 unarmed people. Investigators determined that the killer's motive was anti-Semitism. The mayor said after signing the bill, if we didn't challenge laws, women wouldn't be able to vote. So he's likening this infringement on our Second Amendment rights as to that, as to changing the law so that women can vote.
He wants to infringe on the civil rights. He wants to infringe on the civil rights. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like a straw man argument to me.
So that is a good example of a jackwagon.
Mm-hmm, gotcha.
So do any of you guys have one that comes to mind right as we're talking here, as I come up with the next one?
All progressive liberals.
Oh, just all of them.
Not just one.
Anyone that has ever voted for any DNC-supported candidate.
I think, a biggie would be anybody that embraces socialism. I mean, we've gotten to this point in our country now where where people aren't even hiding it. They're saying I'm a socialist.
Or a communist.
Or a communist. And it's like, you guys realize that historically they've killed well over 100 million of their own people.
Dad and I had a long conversation the other day, and we were trying to figure out, okay, how did we get to a point in this nation where we came from, they understood what happened when you tried to enact socialism. But then you get to where we are now, and what we came up with is that our founding fathers, the people that founded the nation, was they learned and they were educated from people before them, like Plato, Socrates, etc. Now we've got a lot of misinformation that goes around because of the internet. Maybe not because of the internet, but it goes around on the internet. And so people don't really know what to believe anymore, and they don't know how to get educated. And so I think that if we ramp up the education, on our side, if we like fight back against this big media arrow, I'll call it an arrow. Boom! This is the arrow that's attacking the education system. This is what we need. We have like a little arrow.
They do
going back.
know though. Like you get a true socialist. They have read the Communist Manifesto. They are believers, and they go around and tell you how they're different from other. They're a Democrat socialist, or they're a whatever socialist. And you bring up the
Southern Baptist.
The Nazis were the National Socialist Workers Party,
Right.
and they give you all these examples how the Nazis weren't socialist, even though they had socialized medicine and they had gun control, they had registered gun owners, they had found people like the Democrats want to call red flag laws. They had found people they believed to be terrorists. In that case, it was the Jews, right? A socialist, they're probably very well educated.
Zach, keep us
right?
honest on time.
Like they're probably they do know they choose to live like that. You know, the other thing is a socialist or a communist is, and I was thinking about this the other day. Somebody said one time, no one wages a war like white people do. Right? When you look at what we've done in Europe, World War I, World War II, the fire bombings of Dresden, the killing,
Sure.
Nobody had a problem with it. Communism, socialism has killed more people, but at the end of the day, a socialist, one of these people that say, I'm a democratic socialist, I support these ideals and values, they're racist because what it was is communism killed 100 million people. They weren't white people. So when you think of indigenous populations, your average New York liberal doesn't care how many Chinese or Japanese were killed or Vietnamese were killed.
Yeah.
Because they don't recognize that as a civilized society. When you're like, hey, 100 million
Stats are
people
just
died.
used to prove whatever point that you want to try to prove. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they make excuses for it.
It's interesting though that people would still, I'm drawing a parallel between, so we've got AR-15s where, that they're trying to make those illegal because X number of people have been killed, which is horrible. It's horrific that that's happened, but they're using that to drive an agenda forward. And at the same time, those very same people are pushing a socialist agenda forward where it's like, hey guys, based off your own argument, we should be as far away from socialism as possible because it has historically
you're proving your own case.
You're proving your own case. It's
Hundreds of
historically
millions of people.
murdered its own people.
You can't
Hundreds
tell
of
them
millions
that.
of people.
Very
And I
good.
guess maybe 100 million is so. It's like, how do you quantify that in the human brain? Yeah. I mean, that's like you're talking a major metropolitan city like times 10.
Yeah.
Right.
People
Like the entire
gone.
Salt Lake Valley times 100.
What is it? One person's a tragedy and 1,000 people's a. There's a thing.
Yeah, kill a person, you're a murderer. Kill a million, you're a conqueror.
Yeah.
And so, it's Jackwagon. There you go.
Jackwagon.
Yeah.
So next one comes from our Sergeant at Arms, Jason Edgar. I made him Sergeant at Arms last episode because he had so many Jackwagon nominations. So we just made him the freaking Sergeant at Arms. Says, can't remember if Kamala Harris has been on in the past. This list is freaking huge. Senator Kamala Harris has called for banning assault weapons and requiring universal background checks and made passionate calls for action by Congress on gun control. But she also owns a gun herself. She said Thursday. She stated, you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. It's a false choice that is born out of lack of courage from leaders who must recognize and agree that there are some practical solutions to what is a clear problem in our country. The problem, Jason says, is uneducated Americans on the Second Amendment. When controlling or regulating any firearm, this weakens the people from a tyrannical government, which is true. No surprise here, Kamala Harris is only looking out for, number one, herself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They always do that. They always find someone that owns a gun or grew up in a hunting family. And they've even run commercials. Did you not see the commercial with all the vets?
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, there's millions of they always find an article and it says I grew up hunting or I grew up shooting and I don't give a shit what you find. So she has a right to own a gun even though she's a tyrannical dictator who goes out of her way every day to oppress and destroy good Americans. She has the right to own a gun. Everybody in this country does.
And I've got a theory that the Second Amendment, so if you look at the Founding Fathers and where we were at, and, I don't think owning guns now, everybody's going to gasp here for a second. So bear with me. I don't think owning guns is so much so that we can protect ourselves from a tyrannical government, as it is so much is so we can protect ourselves from our neighbors who, when genocide kicks off, as we've seen historically, become the government.
Right.
And so if you look at the Cultural Revolution, the People's Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, all of those, Rwanda, all of those started with neighbors. Even the Nazis started with neighbors. The neighbors were not, the good people were not able to defend themselves against the neighbors. And after they crushed enough of their neighbors, they then became the tyrannical government. And you actually, historically speaking, we've seen that over and over and over and over again, where you've got a perfectly fine government that just gets overrun by the thugs and the heavy-handed ones because people can't protect themselves.
Like a homeowners association. Look at what those become. Think about it.
Or the teachers union.
You get 5 or 6 people that have never had any power. They elect themselves a homeowner association. Next thing you know, they're kicking people out of their houses.
Yeah.
And they don't do it. They probably don't wake up in the morning and be like, man, I am going to get this guy kicked out of his house. They just become so entangled in their own bullshit.
Yeah.
So we had a suggestion by one of our lead heads, and I'm trying to look who it was, but he wants us to do something that's the opposite of the jackwagon. So we've been doing the Talking Lead Jackwagon Train, the gunnies.
Man, I love that idea.
Over the jackwagon train, but he wants to do something the opposite. People who are doing good, doing good in the community. So we want.
What are you going to call it?
We've asked our lead heads to come up with names for that. So they've sent in some suggestions.
That's great.
The Rainbow Train.
No,
I've done.
That's not it.
I've done like 3 interviews here lately where I the drum that I'm constantly beating is, if we as a group, as a community, can find a way to bind together and prop each other up, then we will be a force to be reckoned with. If we can, can we all just get along? But if we can figure out a way to stay on common ground and understand that it's like we're not always going to agree with each other, that's okay.
We were talking about
gentlemanly debate is absolutely encouraged, but the name calling, at no point should graphic art win an argument. So we should just
memes.
Socialism.
Kill that.
Yeah.
That's the way of socialism. Yeah. That's Stalin and Lenin, right?
We for the most part we keep this show positive. The jackwagon train is kind of our escapism.
Your escape.
So to counter that, we're going to come up with an opposite, and it was Jeffrey Haddix who came up with the idea, and it says, "Hey Lefty, been thinking more on the subject. Maybe it should be called the Talking Lead Freedom Fighter Award for those fighting for our freedom. As for a vehicle being a Navy vet from the 80s, I'm partial to the fighter jet. We launched from the deck of my ship, the USS Carl Vinson, the F-14 Tomcat. I know there are newer, faster, sexier jets out there, but the Tomcat, Tom Cruise, Top Gun, we talked about that earlier, had an appropriate motto for freedom fighting. Anytime, baby. Thanks again for the great show and keep cranking out the interviews, Jeff Haddix." So there's one suggestion. So with the jackwagon train, they're called jackwagons, and then our vehicle is the jackwagon train that hauls them off. And the gunny is the engineer that train and make sure that they don't get off that train.
Gotcha.
So what we asked is come up with a name and then a vehicle that our patriots, are gonna be riding. So that was his suggestion there. Do you guys have any ideas on what direction we should go with that?
I'm stuck on Freedom Fighter with the jet. I like that.
You could call it the positive cycle and put some dude on a Harley.
Yeah.
The positive cycle. That's a good one.
Positive cycle. I like that.
Let's see, my thing's jacking
The happy
up here.
basket.
So here's one. Josh Spiel, jackwagon train opposite.
The Jill wagon.
The Jill says, "Hey Lefty, always enjoy the show and all the great guests you interact with. I've been thinking about the vehicle and name for those folks who champion our Second Amendment freedoms and came up with the idea. We could call the vehicle the Liberty Limo.
That's pretty good.
That's good.
And during the show, you could announce, 'Oh, hey, looks like the Liberty Limo's pulling up. Let's see who's inside.' Kind of like they do on like E! Entertainment and
That's
stuff.
your new producer right there.
There you go.
I was going to say Happy Hummer, but now that sounds pretty
Happy
gay.
Hummer.
I'm down for a Happy Hummer.
For Liberty Limo sounds much better.
Then we could call the
Joy Jeep.
folks,
Joy Jeep.
celebrities, like celebrities, but they're celebrities. That's
Celebrity.
celebrities.
It's like a talking lead celebrity.
And instead of a celebrity, it's a
You're
celebrity.
making up words like a mumble rapper now.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of
Celebrity.
like we do here on this show, is that we leducate the uneducated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what our podcast is about, is leducating.
Do you guys talk about lead safety?
List safety.
Lead safety?
Yes,
like-
we talk about that. So that's his suggestion. Anyone who is a celebrity walks the red carpet, and you could input camera, sound effects, blah 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 blah. So that's a good idea. I kind of like that idea. So what I'm going to do, I've got lots of these from you guys. Okay, there's all kinds of ideas. There's jets, there's other trains, there's boats. So I'm going to get like our top 3, and I'm going to put them to a vote for you guys, and we're going to let you vote on what we're going to go with from there. Did you guys have any other ideas? Anything you want to throw in the pot?
No, that's better than
Happy Hummer.
You like the Happy Hummer?
Yeah, everybody loves a happy
The
Hummer.
positive pin scour.
Freedom Flight.
The positive pin scour.
Ryan Baker says Freedom Flight over there.
There you go.
Freedom Fighters flying on the Freedom
Chris
Force
Barrett's
1.
got one.
Hey, man, what's up,
He's
Ryan?
got a pin scour.
The Harmony Hilux.
The Harmony Hilux.
Yeah.
I like
Probably one of the greatest vehicles ever
You could
built
paint
for
that up
off-roading.
too. That could be an NRA booth thing. This is the Harmony Hilux.
The Harmony
You wanna-
Hilux.
Something happy. We're not happy anymore, man.
And set the lead quarters up from
you
there.
know,
There you go.
if you
It's not headquarters, it's lead quarters.
It's
lead
lead
quarters.
quarters.
That's why
we
he
used
came
to
up
sit
with
around and talk
celebrity.
about
Yes,
like,
that's pretty good.
reloading
I
and
like
stuff.
that.
Now we just sit around
Celebrities
and talk
getting out of
about
the Liberty
gun
limo.
law. That's all. I like the positive pin scour as well.
Okay.
It's just it's a little long to spell.
Yeah. I don't know if I could get a good tune to that. Music.
What about the Happy Hummer?
Oh, man, we could come up with some noises for that. For
Patches? That'd make a great patch.
Sure. Happy Hummer.
All right, so we're
So
gonna.
who's the Happy Hummer of the week?
The Hallelujah.
We don't have any nominations. Wait, let me make sure we don't have any nominations for that yet.
I've got a nomination.
I haven't started it yet, so we haven't got nominations.
I've
We're
got
coming up with the names. You got one?
Yeah,
Who
the
is
new
it?
CFO, the NRA, they've started auditing some of their expenses, and I think as a member driven organization, a deep look into the way money's spent, the way members' money's spent,
Yeah.
and taking some that they're going to take some hits for that, right? So having some accountability,
Yeah.
is that's hard to do when you've got all these angry people and happy people, and somebody finally standing up and saying that, hey, we're going to look at ourselves and like we're going to look at our organization and taking responsibility and accountability. That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Like nobody wants to take accountability for anything anymore, and even though it might suck, and like they've filed a lawsuit against ACMAC for some frivolous spending, but at the end of the day, that's a positive step. It's a great step for the NRA, and it's a great step for holding themselves, the executive
I
committee.
think that's a good nomination.
Yeah, and it's positive, right? It may sound negative. We're like, man, we're going to do an audit, but when you do a self audit, that's like the first step. That's
huge.
that's the first like personal step or corporate step.
Yeah, clean your own house before you.
You want some coffee?
Is that coffee?
Yeah.
Speaking of
It's
Black
just
Rifle, this
coffee.
episode brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee Company, and they even have an AK blend for you AK corner lead heads out there.
What is this one, Jeff?
And we're going to talk more about that.
Are we going to
So
talk more about the different?
We're going to talk. Yeah, we're going to work that in. We're short on time, so I'm rushing here.
What kind of Russian are you?
That kind.
Yeah, boy.
So we're going to wrap up the Jackwagon Train. I'll get more of these out when we've got more time. Thank you, all you lead heads,
And the
Alex,
Happy Homer.
Jeff, Doug, John, Patrick, all the Jasons here. Let's see, Kenneth, all you guys. Thanks for sending those in. There's a lot more of you. Sorry if I missed your name. Gonna get that train out of here. All right, so
Is there a sound that I don't hear?
I don't hear anything
Like, is there supposed to be a train sound?
in the show. I
Oh,
added all
nice,
that.
nice. That's what. That was a legitimate question. Like,
Yeah.
nice, choo choo.
Yeah, and it sounds just like choo choo. Yeah. So before we get into more of what's going on with you, there's some things that I want you lead heads to be aware of that are going on. Our good buddy Paul Markel, Jarrad's father, was recently diagnosed with cancer, and we want to do everything that we can to help him out through this time, help you guys out. And there is a GoFundMe site that's been set up.
Yes, much to
Could you
Dad's.
tell us about that?
Yeah, Dad doesn't like the GoFundMe thing. He's not anti GoFundMe, but he doesn't.
No, he was adamantly opposed
Yes.
to doing this.
To doing this, and James Yeager and I got together and we said, look, it's happening because people are asking us, hey, how can I support you? And rather than telling them, well, just you can't, we gave them a way to do that. And it's studentofthegun.com/GoFundMe. We do not expect any donations. If you don't have the money to donate, please don't. But there's an address there. If you can send Dad a letter or an email or something, then that'll be perfectly fine.
Just showing that you support him and you're behind him, praying mentally, you know.
For sure. And
but if you have money, that's even better. If you've got a few bucks to spare, then please,
$5-10
by all means.
That's perfectly fine. And anything that is not used to cover Dad's medical bills will be donated to some cancer charity and probably Star Treatments, because that's what we support. So
yeah, and Jacob is here because Night Fision is doing an awesome kind of ancillary thing to this with the sites. Talk about that.
You know, we worked with Paul. I guess it's been 2 years ago now, right, Jarrad, to develop the Student of the Gun, the
year
accurate
and a half,
sites.
2 years, yeah.
Year and a half ago. I've known Paul now for 8, 9, 10 years. Met him through Dave Biggers, and we wanted to do something. And so we have the Accurate site that Paul designed and we've worked with in partnership with Student of the Gun. And what we're doing is if you go to the website, you go to nightfision.com, you get a set of Accurates. They're the sites that Paul designed. You put in the code Paul. And that
PAUL.
PAUL. And that gives you 10% off the site. And then we're donating 10% to the GoFundMe.
So there you go.
So
that's an awesome way to do it as well.
So
Night Fision.
and you're getting the Student of the Gun site, which as the director of sales, Paul is constantly asking me why I'm not selling more. So this is like double.
Your job, Jacob.
It's double sided, right? So you get a discount on the site. So if you're being a cheapskate, you can get a discount.
Yep.
And what do those fit? What guns do those fit?
So we've got them for the CZ, the real CZs, the P07 P10s, right? The polymer guns, not the ones you got to have a master's degree to change the sights out on. The Smith & Wesson, the Shield, the Glock 42, 43, and the Glock 9mm 40 series. So calibers, right? We don't do the 10mm and Glock 21s, but you get 10% off. So if you got to type the code in, right? So that's the identifier. We're not saying you got to type the code in, blah, blah, blah. The reason is that's how accounting tracks that discount.
And knows to get
that's
the
how
10.
we apply. So you get the 10% off, and we give the 10% to Paul. So
there you go, guys.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, it's awesome. So
get behind us. I want to see a lot of you lead heads out there.
And listen, if you are one of these people that uses inferior site, you can still just go donate money to the GoFundMe.
You got options.
Like if you are stuck on your, I don't want to use the best night site, Tritium night site in the world, and I love my inferior product, you can go to the GoFundMe and put money in there.
That'll work.
Either way, Paul's always given back to the gun community, and now it's time
But one
for
way or
all of
the
us
other,
to
make
step
sure
up.
you guys go to their Instagram page, go to their
Night Fision,
Facebook, Student of the Gun, and show Paul some love.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I know we have.
They've been really good to Talking Lead and you lead heads over the years. So let's get behind them.
Student of the Gun /GoFundMe.
Yep, that's where you go.
Yep.
Perfect. Very good. All right, Kirkham.
Captain Kirk.
Jeff, we want to find out more about who?
Paul.
Is he on there?
Yeah, he's
Hello,
watching.
Paul.
Yeah.
There he is.
Hi,
Professor Paul is watching us live. What's up, buddy? Missing you. Wish you were here. How did you get started in all this? Going from the military, back up 30 years in the military. I mean, I can kind of see what drove you to what you're doing with the READYMAN, kind of the preparedness type products and things that you're preparing. But the coffee, the Black Rifle coffee, and
well,
some of the other things
it
that you're
all
behind.
kind of started springing out at the same time. We had Evan and I were working together out in Colorado. So Evan Hafer, who's the CEO and he's the brains and the energy behind Black Rifle Coffee, and we were working together out in Colorado. We were in Special Forces together, and anyways, he had a daughter about the time I had my first son. We started a little bit late in life, and all of a sudden, when you're older in life, and I'd done everything I had ever dreamed of doing in the military, and then some. And so, I checked all the blocks, and all of a sudden, I've got this little human being that is dependent on Dad coming home, and so all of a sudden, going out and assaulting targets in the Middle East wasn't quite as cool as it was before. And so, anyways, we started kind of plotting our escape, and Evan was very much in the same boat. And fast forward, he came out to Utah. I was living in Utah. He lived in my basement for, I don't know, 8 months or something. And where we were spinning up a couple of different businesses. We had one that was Twist Rate. That was it was a crowdfunding platform that was sympathetic to the firearms community. We made a bunch of mistakes. We were new at business and, overspent in some areas and whatnot. And marketing, we didn't really understand it. And we had a marketing place that cost us a lot of money. It was very expensive education.
I've heard that from a lot of people.
So we essentially that closed down.
Stupid tax.
Yeah, stupid tax. Well, education. I like to call it.
There you go.
We got a lot smarter. And so as that was winding down, we spun up. We met the guys on READYMAN. READYMAN was like literally 4 months old or something. It was brand new. And so we came in and started helping out in READYMAN. And at that same time, I had RATs Tourniquet. And I had licensed it out. RATs, at that point, they had sold thousands of RATs overseas to the Iraqis and the Afghans. And that company was shutting down. And so I pulled that license back, and I was like, well, I'm going to try and release it domestically. And so RATs took off. And then Evan came to me one day, and he was like, he's always been a big coffee head. And he was like, man, I think we should start a coffee company. And I was like, okay. So we might as well start something else.
So was he just sitting there drinking Folgers one day? He's like, this really sucks, man. We could do better than this.
And so started cranking on that. And so kind of the three of those companies have turned into what they are, obviously Black Rifle. And again, Evan is he's the genius.
The RATs
behind that.
Tourniquet, I'm sure a lot of our lead heads have heard of the RATs Tourniquet. Was that like your first offering, your first product that kind of got you?
It was the first one that we released. Yeah, it was like my third patent. I've got a bunch of patents, but it was my third patent. And so when that released, it was right as tourniquets were starting to get recognized here domestically. And that's really what took it off. And we sell that thing worldwide now. And there's nothing more humbling is when I'll get emails or phone calls or messages that where people say, hey, I just use your tourniquet.
Just saw one on there somewhere. Yes. Somebody mentioned it on
last Friday. Is that Matthew Zeller? Is that who that is? M. Zeller?
What is that?
He said he used RATs last Friday.
Oh, wow. Yeah, if you
send that email.
If you email me, had used my last Friday. Hey, MZell 1985. Hey, if you direct message me, I'd love to hear that story. We're on the way. We're trying to collect as many save stories as possible. We're up to about 50 right now of people that have
it's more than one or two.
To us.
You told me.
Yeah, and that's
it's
just
never
the ones
a good day when you
known.
got to use a tourniquet, but it's good to hear that people are out there and they're being effective with them.
And it's amazing too, is we've gotten the most bizarre stuff. I think maybe out of the 50 that we know about, there's probably like 4 of them are gunshot ones, and the rest of them are chainsaws, circular saws. A friggin' forklift, pane glass windows,
kitchen knife,
wood chippers,
couple of kitchen knives. We had one guy that was cutting down a tree, and the tree bucked. Wasn't a chainsaw, but the tree bucked. Put his arm through the house that was standing behind it. Essentially, degloved his arm.
Wow.
While he was there, and and happened to have my tourniquet, so they put that on. A bunch of car wrecks. We had two people who had been hit by trains that they had traumatic leg amputations.
Right.
Motorcycles. We had one guy that degloved his leg riding a motorcycle, which is like
yummy.
But these folks, we had one kid that had a hunting knife, and he's sitting in a drive-through and he's kind of messing around, and next thing you know, he had completely sliced his femoral artery. He sent me pictures of the truck, and it's like a pool of blood. Yeah. And he called me and he was like, hey, they used your tourniquet on my leg to save my life. And it's so phone calls like that to me, I'm just like, wow, that's cool. Yeah. He was going to put it back in the sheath and
missed the sheath,
missed the sheath,
really
and
sharp.
And
I mean, he's got a future in sharpening knives.
There's a lot of guys we carry him.
Buck might be hiring
and to leave them with the Africans.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that die in Africa, not of disease or a snake bite. It's
machetes.
It's they either get around the animal and the animal spears them, right? The big horned animals, a little animal will put that horn through their femoral artery,
gouged,
or they are screwing off with their knife
and they cut themselves.
And they cut like they're trying to skin something or show off, and they just.
I'll tell you, we've got 3 or 4 box cutters where one guy was breaking down a box and sliced his radial artery. And, he's covered in blood. We had another guy that was breaking down boxes. He sliced his femoral artery. Another guy that was removing carpet. And, it's like the most bizarre. We had a kid that out of Texas that he was monkeying around. He's beating on this pane glass window, just being silly, being a teenager. Window busted. He went through it, sliced both of his brachial arteries. And the police officer that was there had literally just gotten my tourniquet. And he ran in there and threw it on this kid's arm and saved his life. Wow. So
Jeff did an amazing speech at FitCon. I think it was last weekend.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd ever heard the story of how you came up with the idea of the rats or why you thought there was a problem that needed to be solved. I don't know if we have time to tell that, but if you can condense it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Afghanistan. It was about 2007, and we were walking up to assault a target. There was some Al-Qaeda dudes on the inside, and anyways, we got compromised, and so one of the bad guys inside of the compound. We call them compounds because like all of these houses were surrounded by 12-foot walls. Mm-hmm. And they were about 3 foot thick, made out of brick, mud brick. And so anyways, we got compromised. They knew we were there. One of the guys ran out on the courtyard and started putting rounds through the gate, the steel gate that was there. So I had 2 of my guys. We had just gotten there, and we were lining up to make entry into this place. And they get hit in the legs with AK rounds that had come through. So we jump up, we grab these guys, we drag them down to the ditch. And these are my Afghan commandos. And so we drag these guys down in the ditch, and so I jump up and I'm directing the fire from the guys. We've got guys on ladders and stuff. There's a big fight that's going on. And at one point I look back into the ditch to see how my guys are doing. And the medics were down there, and it was the middle of the night, so we're wearing NVGs, we're wearing gloves, and it was about as stressful as you can get because like bullets are winging everywhere and stuff.
Yeah.
And I looked down there, and the tourniquet we'd been issued, they're fumbling with it. They're kind of having a hard time with it, and it was one of those snapshot moments where I was like, man, you know what? That's interesting. We need to train more or something like that. And so, and then we went out and finished cleaning up the target, and then later on, these same guys who had tourniquets on their legs were getting ready to medevac these guys, and we're waiting for the helicopters to come in. And they're trying to take their own tourniquets off because the skin had gotten pulled up into the windlass, and so they, it pulled the skin up in the thing. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. So fast forward about 3 months later, I'd rotated back to the States, and I was training some Air Force pararescuemen, some PJs, and it's a very high stress course. It was all simunitions. You're getting pelted. It's very painful. And I was up on the catwalk, and I'm yelling at these PJs, "You're wounded, put a tourniquet on your arm. You're wounded, put a tourniquet on your leg. You're wounded, put a tourniquet on your other leg." And so I'm up on the catwalk watching these PJs, and it's night, wearing NVGs, gloves, very high stress. And I'm like, holy cow, these PJs were struggling the same way that my Afghans had been struggling with a tourniquet. And so at that moment, I was like, this isn't an education thing. This is a design thing. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try and find something better. And I couldn't find anything better. And then what my wife likes to call a very expensive ego trip, I was like, well, I'm going to make something better. And so, fast forward a little bit later, it took me a couple of years because I was constantly refining it and making it. I wanted something that was as dirt simple as possible. And that you could use, I like to say, scared shitless in the dark.
I wish we had one in here right now.
And I think
there's one right there. There's
and so and that's where it's like, look, it doesn't, there's probably, like, if you go to the hospital or something, there's probably a better tourniquet there. But this This was designed to be super simple, and I kind of crack up when people tell me, like, you know, and like any other product this is completely different tourniquet, and like any other thing, I get a bunch of hate from people, and one of the things people say is like, well, it's too complicated. And I'm like, I was training illiterate Afghans how to use this in like 5 minutes. Yeah. So
show us real quick on
So Jacob. The way this works is
put it around his neck.
It's a trucker's hitch. So if you're tying something down in the back of your truck, it's a 3-finger loop, and then your running end here goes through the loop. It's an elastic tourniquet, right? And so this goes over. And so tourniquets you want to be 1.5 inches to 2 inches wide, right? So you can shut down the artery. Right. So you pull this down, and then this one you just come around. So now, and I'm not going to crank it on him, but now I'm 1.5 inches. And the metal piece, we call it a cleat because it's a boat cleat was the inspiration for this. And you just cleat off like that, and you're done. So it was very simple, and you can use this thing. It's scared in the dark, and we also had, we had kids that were over there that would get wounded from these idiot suicide bombers and stuff, and so all of a sudden it was, we needed something that'd work on kids, and we needed something that'd work on a big assaulter, and so that was, my better
thing about
mousetrap.
these clamp down further than the other tourniquets. So I read this. I mean, you knew this. The kids with the smaller arms, the tourniquets weren't getting tight enough. Animals, the service dogs, getting wounded. This saved their lives as well.
We've actually got 2 canine saves. So we had one canine that was Ranger Battalion, had a leg. It was either shot or blown off. They used the RATs to save that canine, and then there was another canine that got into a fight with another canine and punctured an artery, and they used the tourniquet to save him.
Do you need to go both sides?
If it's an actual, like it's care under fire or something, you go both sides. And so with this, if you use this, there's a vertical right here, and I only went to the horizontal. So I tell people, it's like, hey, if you're monkeying around and you're just kind of seeing how this thing works, only go to the horizontal, because as soon as you go to the vertical, so that's the horizontal, as soon as you come here into the vertical, that is a mother to get that thing out.
To cut it.
And so you've got to stretch this thing and roll it over. And if it's on there tight, it's really hard to stretch it. And so that's another one where people are like, it's not very secure. And it's like, brother, you've never used one before, because it's hard to get out. There's a technique where you can break the cleat so that if it is stuck, you can get.
Is this a proprietary material that you've made this out of?
Well, I found this company. So this is, this is essentially vulcanized rubber on the inside. So it's a car tire. So it's unbelievably resilient to heat and to cold. And then the outside is a polyester sheath. And what the polyester sheath does is, one, it protects the vulcanized rubber on the inside so the sun can't get to it. And then two, what that does is that makes that slick. So now, if I'm cinching this on, it won't ever pull my skin up into there. Even if I had clothing on, it won't pull the clothing up in there. So the sheath is actually part of the magic that makes that work.
Nice. And people
it's pretty awesome.
Go to where to get these?
They can either go to READYMAN.com and pick them up, or RATSmedical.com. And
are they on Amazon?
RAT stands for
on Amazon.
Rapid
Application Tourniquet System. Yep. Or on Amazon. We've got, go to the READYMAN store on Amazon, and you can buy them there.
And you've got all kinds of cool stuff on the READYMAN website. You've got the survival cards.
Yep. So another one of
those were
Jarrad
was showing me those yesterday.
They're super cool.
2-minute warning.
He was telling me about it, and I was thinking, they were like flashcards, like if you're in the woods and you can pull out your survival cards that don't eat this berry, or
like sift through them.
Yeah. Look for the moss on this side of the tree, and that's. But
kind of the cool moment in my life, right? Is because I was a special.
That's
forces
not
guy.
what they are, by the way.
And the SEER committee, so Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape. That committee, the instructors all bought my card, or bought the READYMAN card here. I guess that was like a year or so ago, and it was like, and as a former SF guy, it was like, yes. Okay, a bunch of my peers have now recognized they like my product, and
right.
And
Talk about what that is. Tell them what we're talking about. Is there one here?
If you go to READYMAN, it's called the Wilderness Survival Card. It's the size of a business card. It's
Everybody
made out
on
of stainless
Instagram's
steel.
got to have seen one.
They probably have. This is the hostage escape card. And so what we did is we figured out like little tools.
This is so cool.
And you carry this thing around as the GoPro. Here, you can hold it up to the GoPro. You put this thing in your wallet. So it's like a survival kit that fits in your wallet. This is the hostage escape. We've got a wilderness survival. We've got a medical one. We've got another fishing survival one. So we did several different versions of kind of the same genre.
Any success stories?
To our knowledge, we don't know of anybody that's used one in a survival situation. But like the fish hooks and stuff, we've had actually quite a few people have told us they've caught like trout and stuff like that with them. So, and then
No escapes.
the lock picks, as far as like actual uses, we've probably
Lockpick
received
works. Yeah, I've
like
used it.
100 people are like, I locked myself out of my house and
Dad locked himself out of the
no
garage.
handcuffs.
We
Stories
opened our
yet?
gun cases at Century.
no handcuff ones.
No handcuff stories yet. But on the survival one, there's spear tips, there's the fish hooks, there's
There's a double tooth hacksaw, there's a serrated blade, there's tweezers, there's an awl, there's a couple of sewing needles.
and it's all on this little micro
Yeah.
thin credit card
your
thin.
Yeah.
The fishing one's got some like blades on it.
It's got some blades on it, yeah.
Like a spoon.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. There was a Canadian survival school that bought the wilderness card, and they're like, we're going to check out this arrowhead. We think it's kind of flimsy and this thing isn't going to work. And so these guys tested out the thing. And by the end of the video, they were like, well, I'll be damned. That's legit. They were like, okay, ready, man. All right. This thing's legit. This is pretty cool. And it was like, right on, man. Thanks.
Nice. But you guys are doing a lot of different things there at READYMAN. You guys go to their website, READYMAN.com, Black Rifle Coffee, blackriflecoffee.com. You could probably go to your local gun store. They're probably carrying it there. You're not going to find it in like Kroger or something like that yet.
No, not yet. Online, a lot of online sales. Most of them are online sales.
Online sales. And then you guys have some other things. You've got a T-shirt.
Yep. So
Company you're doing?
ratsmedical.com and then Savage Gentleman.
Savage Gentleman. I forgot
Gentleman.
about the beard. All you beard wearing guys out there. They've got some great products for your
Great
beard.
T-shirts and
If your
wallets
husband
and
doesn't
stuff.
have a beard, you've got a wife. So
Seen some cool axes out there. Is that part of anything that you're doing now? Those axes are.
I mean, we those are more like presents where we've put them together and just give.
I mean, I want to move in here permanently. This needs to be the new.
It's like a
headquarters. I
gun
love
dude
this.
incubator.
Yes.
I mean, everybody here, all the companies that are here, everybody's of the same mind, very centric, and I like being here.
I love it.
That's
I told
awesome.
Jarrad,
Love being
like, this
here.
has been.
Thank you guys for having
I told
me.
you guys at lunch. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it has been. It's been kind of mind blowing.
Always welcome.
But Jacob, give your contact info and everything again.
So nightfision.com, the discount code for the Paul is Paul, Paul, for the Accurate sites. We're doing 10% off the Accurates and 10% to the GoFundMe, right? So that's what we've got going on right now. Everybody needs to buy a set of sites, and if you want a shitty set of sites,
It's awesome of you guys to do that.
then you can just donate to the GoFundMe.
studentofthegun.com/GoFundMe. Also, I forgot to mention earlier that Dad's using Fighting Solves Everything as his campaign for this because he believes that fighting solves everything. So you use
Never
that
quit.
hashtag on anything.
Never give up. Never quit.
And we're going live here as soon as we shut down here. We're going live on the READYMAN Media.
READYMAN
So
Media.
we're gonna switch seats and
I'll be over there, you'll be over here, and we'll make them switch too. Make sure you guys go and support the podcast. Right on Optics, RITON, optics.com. Modern Spartan Systems for all your gun cleaning and lubrication needs, modernspartansystems.com. Keltec Weapons, go get an awesome bullpup from Keltec, their shotguns, their rifles, their
22 Magnum.
22 Magnums that they got out. They got a new 22 Long out. That's really cool
Love it.
too.
Steel turrets.
Who am I forgetting? 1776 United. Get all your Talking Lead swag there. Get your Talking Leadys, Evil Black Assault mugs. Your Talking Leady, better than a Yeti. Keeps your drinks minutes colder. Dip123.com/Talking Lead to get those. And make sure you guys go and support Charlie on this full working long shot. Until next time, as always, Leadheads, keep your loved ones close.
Keep your firearms closer.
Close enough.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in.